Welcome and a good evening to the City of Shakopee City Council meeting for May 16th, 2017. Item number 1, if we could call the roll, please.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Luce.
Here.
Councilmember Lehman.
Here.
Mayor Mars.
Here.
Councilmember Whiting.
Here.
Councilmember Mokel.
Here.
Thank you very much. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item number 3, approval of the agenda. Are there any changes, corrections, deletions, additions? Mr. Reynolds.
Mr. Mayor, the only change we have is Resolution 7889, which is on your desk, has the addition of the following phrase: subject to the city's attorney's review of the final contract. The city administrator as designee is hereby authorized and directed to enter into a contract with MKSK. After talking with legal counsel, it was determined that we should have that included in actually all of our resolutions that are dealing with contracts, and so we will make that happen in the future.
Okay, so this will stand as a corrected version.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Councilmember Lehman,
Item 10A2.
We're still on the agenda, right?
still on the agenda.
No, it's the item, that's
Oh, I
that's
see
the
what
item
you're
he's
saying.
talking about.
I see what you're
10A2.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, sir, that's
Yep.
correct, 1082.
And it is on the
Okay.
agenda.
I'm sorry.
Councilmember Whiting.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as modified.
I have a second by Councilor Mokel. Further discussion? Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Moving ahead then to consent business. Are there any changes, additions, deletions, Mr. Reynolds?
Nothing from staff, sir.
Councilor Luce?
4D2 and D3.
Mr. Lehman?
I'll move the consent agenda as modified.
I have a motion and a second by Councilor Mokel. Before we vote then, we will read the modified consent agenda with 4D2 and 4D3 off consent. Mr. Reynolds?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. These are the consent agenda items for May 16th of 2017. 4A1 adopts resolution number 7882, which sets a public hearing date for vacation of public drainage and utility easements at Riverview Estates, second edition. 4A2 adopts resolution number 7890, which authorizes a letter of support to the Minnesota Housing Finance Agency for the rehabilitation of village apartments. 4B1 declares listed bicycles and miscellaneous items as surplus property and authorizes their proper sale or disposal. 4C1 approves quotes for the installation of lights for the 2016 street lighting project number 2016 TAC 5. 4C2 adopts resolution number 7887, which approves a wetland replacement plan for the Ridge Creek project. 4C3 adopts resolution number 7885, which authorizes appropriate city officials to submit a grant application for the Centerpoint Energy 2017 Community Partnership Grant. 4C4 adopts resolution number 7878, which accepts bids and awards contract for project 2017 TAC 3 to Northwest Asphalt Incorporated, approves a 5% contingency, and authorizes appropriate city officials to execute an extension agreement with Bolton and Mink Incorporated for construction engineering services. 4C5 adopts resolution number 7888, which receives a preliminary engineering report and calls for a public hearing on the SPU Shakopee Avenue Electric Undergrounding Project 2017 TAC 9. 4D1 approves extended Saturday construction work hours through July at Tapa Park. 4E1 approves the payment of bills and electronic transfers in the amount of $2,015,176.36. 4E2 approves the minutes of the May 2nd, 2017 council meeting. 4E3 approves suspension of City Code 114.11, consumption and possession of alcoholic beverages, allowing the VFW at 1201 3rd Avenue East to hold their annual fundraiser. And 4E4 approves the application and grants a temporary on-sale 3.2% malt liquor license to the Shakopee Lions Club for their softball tournament held at Tapa Park on June 2nd through June 4th of 2017.
Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. Consent agenda motion on the table. Second, modified consent agenda has been read. No discussion. Did you have Councilor Luce? Oh, okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Moving ahead now, I'd like to call any resident that would like to come forward and speak on an item not on the agenda. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and welcome on an item not on the agenda. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Kim Mosick and I'm with the Shakopee American Legion. And we're here to find out why we don't have the flag at the Memorial Park lit. We feel like it has to be lit. Flag etiquette requires the flag be lit at night or it be taken down. And right now it's not lit at night, it's left up, and we'd like to see it get lit up on a regular basis.
Well, great. Mr. Reynolds, do you have a comment on this?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we, when I say we, I should say me, found out about this just a couple weeks ago when we had the request from the VFW on the issue. We're working the issue. The gentleman is absolutely correct. Protocol is that when the flag is up at night, it needs to be lit. And it used to be lit, but the pole that the light was on it fell over, I believe, because of rot at some point. And so we're in the process of rectifying that, but the gentleman is absolutely correct.
Counselor Lehman?
So in the meantime, are we taking the flag down at night until
Well,
we get a light?
we definitely need to do that, and we'll figure out a way to make that happen. Yes, sir.
We will work this issue and believe it'll be resolved in the coming short period of time.
Okay, that sounds great. We just, as a Legion, we like to see the flag properly
bet.
respected. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to come forward and bring forward an issue not on the consent agenda? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record on an item not on the agenda. Seeing none then, do we need council direction on that, or we got staff?
No, sir, we'll take care of it.
Not a problem.
And we'll get information to council in regards to what it's going to take. I mean, obviously Memorial Park is a very sensitive area, so it's not like we can just sink a pole. We've got some more steps we've got to go through.
Okay, great. Great then, let's move forward. Item number 6, business removed from consent agenda. 4D2, Councilmember Luce.
Yeah, I would just like to thank a great group of people, Lions Club of Shakopee. They have a great park that they've been consistently donating money, time, and effort to, and I just wanted to give them their recognition at this time for a donation that they've made recently. It'll go towards future development of their park, and it's one of the most used parks in our city, so just want to let them know. Thank you.
That's nice, thank you. You want to make a motion?
Let somebody else.
Councilor Luce?
Thank you. And I believe, as a member of the Lions Club, there was some funding that, the way we had it moved the funds around, it was a little cumbersome, so we've made it a little easier for the city to work with those funds, I believe. So, sure, I would like to make a motion. Make a motion to approve the donation to Shakopee Lions Club for Lions Park Fund Resolution 7891.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you very much. Next item, 4D3, donations for the Fund for All Playground. Councilor Luce.
Yeah, I would like to give Duke Realty some little bit of recognition. One phone call, they gave us a donation of $1,000. They're a great corporate citizen. I wish we had more of them in town. We had a number of people turn us down, but this is a good company that's just come to town. So I just wanted to give them some recognition and thank them for their donation. So, thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to make a motion?
No,
Okay.
Is the fund for the inclusive playground, is that funded now, everything paid for, or is it still need some
depends on how
money?
you look at it. We
Use
have a
some more?
donor wall to put up yet, and we don't know the cost of that.
Okay, so there's still opportunity for people to
Well,
donate?
last I was told that
Okay,
we don't know the cost of it, so it's up in the air at this point.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll offer resolution number 7892, a resolution of the city of Shakopee, accepting a donation of $1,000 for the Shakopee Fund for All Playground from Duke Realty.
I have a motion and a second by Councilor Mokel. Further discussion? Discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you very much. Let's move ahead then to 7A, public hearing for a vacation of a portion of drainage and utility easement in Eagle Creek subdivision. Counselor Lewis, or Lehman?
Motion to open a public hearing.
I have a motion and a second by Counselor Mokel to open a public hearing. Public hearing's now open. Michael will present.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't know if I can- Mayor and Council, this is a vacation of the drainage and utility easement within the Ridge Creek subdivision that you have provided a preliminary plat to. This is the entire easement area as it exists currently. This is the proposed area that will be vacated. That's largely because of the need to construct that road. And
Oh, I think we're without screens tonight.
That's correct. We will not have screens tonight.
I can pass this down if you want, once they find it, if you prefer.
Continue.
this is the vacation area.
It's up on the back here, straight, for at least us facing the,
This is necessary so they can construct the road. And so they, you approved during the consent agenda a replacement for this area. They're required to make up the drainage areas as part of the wetlands. So this will allow for development of lots north of Crossings Boulevard and construction of Crossings Boulevard. The Plan Commission unanimously approved this on May 4th. The Prior Lake, Spring Lake Watershed District and the City Engineering Department have both supported the vacation, and staff recommends City Council approve the vacation request.
questions of staff? Counselor Lehman?
Mayor, safe to assume that any easements needed will be, whether they're drainage easements between houses or whatever, behind houses, will be in the planning process?
Mayor, Councilmember Lehman, Lennar is here tonight. They've been working with some of the property owners to, if you remember, there was some grade differences. They were not able to reach a consensus with those property owners, so they're gonna leave that property the way it is and move forward with their project.
But any easements that are needed for utilities or drainage throughout the plat will get in the platting process.
Mayor and Councilmember Lehman, yes, when you see the final plat, all those will be platted out.
All right.
Other questions of staff? If not, thank you. This is a public hearing. Would anybody like to come forward and make comment on this application? Please come forward and state your name and address for the record. Make public comment on this? Seeing none? Counselor Mokel?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I have a motion
Second.
and a second by Counselor Lehman. Discussion? Counselor Whiting?
Yeah, no, Michael, this is,
Close the hearing.
discussion on the hearing. Go ahead.
Discussion on the public hearing.
Yeah, we can close it, sorry.
Discussion on closing the public hearing. Discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, public hearing is now closed. Counselor Whiting?
Thank you. Could you explain just a little bit on this to me? This is formerly a channel area that was that's being changed,
Mayor, Councilmember Whiting, it's a channel area, but it's a larger wetland area. As part of this project, they're gonna be giving the city, I believe, 38 acres to help restore that area to its original drainage pattern.
so that this area is no longer necessary because of the
Correct.
change in the, okay. Just wanted to make sure that this is not something that's gonna change the way that water flows and,
No, this is a mayor and council member, this is a really large drainage area, and if most of you know, it has not really flooded that much. The wetland area is expanded from, I think Mr. Loney can correct me, but half a dozen acres to more than 30 acres over the years. So it's not a true wetland, it's more of a channel.
all right, thank you.
So the public hearing closed. Counselor Lehman?
I'll offer resolution 7884, resolution approving the vacation of a portion of the drainage and utility easements within a Ridge Creek subdivision.
I have a motion and a second by Counselor Mokel. Further questions? I guess I want to just make a comment that it looks like the Shakopee Engineering Department, the Prior Lake Spring Lake Watershed District,
made some comments and some revisions to this, so I feel like we're in good hands because in the end game, this development is gonna provide a significant wetland elsewhere adjacent, and from that, that's how I look at it. Counselor Lehman?
Mayor, and that was my comment, that the Spring Lake watershed channel is, gonna be operational
Right.
still. They're still,
Yep.
everything's taken care of from their end, and I'm sure our staff that represent us on that have looked at it also, so feel comfortable with that.
Yeah, my only concern and why I asked is that, we get a wet year and and all of a sudden it comes back but it sounds like it's been well taken care of and looked at, so.
Counselor Reynolds?
And actually, once you'll see what's finally going to be proposed, there'll be an actual large enhancement to this area and to the wetlands and hopefully also a park system as part of that wetland experience. So it'll be a great amenity for
As
the
long
whole
as that
area.
wetland is not in someone's basement, we'll
Yes,
be fine.
yes.
Counselor Lehman?
Mayor, and I think we as a body brought that up when they were before us.
Yeah.
And specifically had staff look at that issue, not only from a maintenance standpoint of the watershed, but from a capacity standpoint. So I think we've addressed that once or twice already.
Just cautionary.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Supposed to rain again tonight.
Yeah.
Further discussion? Discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much. Moving ahead then to 7B, public hearing vacating a public road easement. Counselor Lehman?
Motion to open a public hearing.
Counselor Moco?
I'll second.
Open a public hearing. Discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, public hearing is open, and Mr. Noble will present.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, members of the audience. As stated, this is an application for vacation of public road easement. It's an application you've seen a few times the last few months. We were gonna rework some of the language. We have come to an agreement with Shakopee, Metawakan, and Sioux community and are now able to move forward with a formal resolution for the council's consideration. Property in question is located just west of Marshall Road and just north of 160th Street. And then to the north is Eaglewood Drive. Property that's owned by two parties. The majority of it is owned by the SMSC, and a small portion of it is owned by the Behringers. The easement in question was adopted or approved back in the 70s for a road connection from city public street out to Marshall Road or County Road 17. This roadway easement is no longer viable. The corridor study approved by Scott County would not allow an access point out on the 17 at this location. And just for clarification, that the Behringer property, there's just a small segment of it that they own. The majority of the easement is owned, the land owned by the Shakopee, Metawakan, and Sioux community. Both parties did sign the application, but SMSC is carrying the application forward. A little bit closer in, you can kind of show the roadway easement. This is a larger scale drawing. You can see on this, hopefully you can. The blue line is the location of that existing easement, and there's kind of a reddish line that shows some kind of a access from the north down to 160th Street. This is not a set in stone location. Something that we have put together a letter of understanding that is to be signed by the city and the Shakopee, Metawakan, and Sioux community. Essentially acknowledges that in the future there will be some road that will provide access for the public through this property, generally consistent with that corridor study. The exact location is not set right now, but we feel pretty comfortable with this agreement.
there's need by the Shakopee, Meadowalk, and Sioux community, because they will, for their gardens area, they're gonna lose their access on the 17th, so they're gonna have to have an alternate route, and there's some other properties that are gonna need this access. So when this road, 17th Avenue, is improved, where they lose their accesses on 17th, and at that point, then this road access will be constructed. And that's generally what the resolution and the letter of understanding that's before you is for your consideration. So staff's recommending approval. The Planning Commission reviewed this and recommended approval unanimously. So are there any questions for staff?
Questions of staff? I guess I have one, just I was reading the letter of understanding. We're, you know, vacating right away here, but we're not trading it for another easement of roadway. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's essentially correct. That we do have an existing easement, as referenced. Excuse me. Again, this easement is, at this point, it'll never happen.
No,
Even if we didn't vacate it, we would never
Right.
get it.
I understand that the current easement is, you know, not as important today, but I feel the new road alignment is and will be important down the line, and how do we get there at the table? The letter of understanding here is just kind of, not vague, but I just kind of ask a little more about that future
Sure.
roadway.
Yeah, I can go into some more details, and if the applicant is here too. They can certainly chime in at their time. Property is not in trust now. One of the items that was concern is if this land were to go into trust and there's an easement there, it's rather difficult once it's in trust to vacate it. There's several current examples around the community where trying to get items vacated there in trust are quite difficult. So
And on the flip side, if it goes into trust to try to get dedicated easement roadway, is that an issue as well?
we don't believe so. Again, this is why, you know, you saw this at the last two meetings, and it was tabled, continued while we met with the applicant and reviewed language, had our city attorneys involved, they had their legal staff involved, and I think in the end, the letter of understanding that we have before you tonight was something that we felt comfortable with. Say city staff looked at it, we've shared it with the county as well. And again, with what the needs, future needs for the SMSC, they're gonna need to have something as well. So we feel quite comfortable that there will be a road access, and we're comfortable with the documents that we've crafted. So,
All right, thank you. Other questions of staff? Other questions of staff? If not, thank you.
thank you.
This is a public hearing. Would the applicant and/or residents like to come forward and make comment on this application? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and welcome.
Mayor Mars, honorable council members, my name's Stan Ellison. I'm the Director of Land and Natural Resources for the Shakopee Sioux community. And with me is Victoria Aranyua. She's the land manager. She did most of the actual work on this, so I'm just talking. The vacation and letter of understanding really is something, a compromise we've been working on for quite a while here to try to figure this out. And it also involved Scott County, because we realize that easement can never be constructed the way it's designed in there. And we need to have access to that property too. We're gonna lose our access off of 17, based on the discussions we've had with Scott County. In fact, they want a significant amount of right-of-way from us. It's really almost a four-way agreement. There's the city and the tribe are the two primary people, but we've got Scott County, and then looming in the background, not so much for the city, but for the tribe, we have the federal government telling us how we have to do things.
Right.
So that's how we arrived at this letter of agreement. We had a lot of discussions about whether we could actually put a roadway in there now, and the kind of felt like if we did stick something in there now, we'd probably be back here in a year or 2 or 3 or 4 redoing it, because we probably wouldn't get it in the right place. So that's the reason for the letter of agreement. Now, as to your question about in the future, if it is in trust, there's a process for doing rights of way to local governments. We're doing one right now with Scott County for County Road 83. The alternative is to do what we did on Tinta Oshanku, which is just an agreement with the city that makes that a public road. And we're in the process on the rest of Tinta Oshanku of doing that also for the rest of that road when it gets built. So there's several ways to make a road that we build in there accessible to the city and to its constituents.
Well, the future road is important, so. Right.
yeah.
And I want to make sure that we're all on the same page and, you know, years down the line, so that's kind of where I brought
Right.
up we're not really trading one easement for another. We're vacating and then a letter of understanding, and that's kind of, just want to make real sure here.
And we've had some issues with that too. I had some discussions with Leslie Vermillion at the county. For example, we don't know where we can come out onto the east-west county road there, because it depends on how they eventually reconstruct County Road 17 and how far away they make us stay from that intersection. And they can't tell us that now, so we can't really design a layout at this point. But we definitely need a north-south route in there ourselves, and
Okay.
it's
Other questions, Counselor Lehman?
What's the, what's gonna drive the timeline for the future road?
primarily development, and a lot of it is gonna be County Road 17. As soon as they tell us we can't have, if they redevelop 17 south of 82, we'll have to do it, because there's no other way we can get in there.
Okay.
At that point, we'd probably go ahead and put the road all the way through,
All right.
up and connect it to the city street.
Counselor Lewis?
The orange or red line that's on here seems to incorporate 2 other property owners. Has this line been decided by the county, or is this by SMSC?
In the County 17 corridor study, if you open that document, it kind of just shows a straight line in that same vicinity. And so it's really just a wide-eye view of what's going on, and no one has set that corridor down on paper. And so the counties, or in the corridor study, it was just a straight line. I know what's on the ground, and I kind of had a curve there because I know where the wetlands are. And then I know those other properties that are kind of connecting to that road, they're going to need access because their roads are going to get cut off. So I kind of now feel bad that I put something on paper, because now we think that, oh, now we can have something. But it's really just a wide-eye view of what likely can happen and who's going to connect to that north-south passage.
Counselor Lehman?
Mary, I would add that when that road does get put in, or access gets cut off to them other properties, the basic process with the county is gonna be the county's gonna end up going in and buying a piece of right-of-way from them properties to connect them to the road, so that
Right.
they have access to their property and the county's able to continue their regional road system. So that's usually how it works.
Other questions of the applicant? If not, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Is this a public hearing? Would anybody else like to come forward and make comment in regard to this application? Seeing none, Counselor Whiting?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second,
I have a motion and a second by Counselor Mokel.
Lehman.
What?
I was waiting. Kathy seconded?
I'm
I
sorry.
can second
I
it.
You didn't.
seconded it.
Well, let's correct that then. The second is by Counselor Lehman.
Did you want a second?
I could, but that's
Oh,
okay.
okay.
I thought you
I saw his
pointed
hand
over
first.
here. There's a motion on the table and a second. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Public hearing is now closed. Okay. Counselor Lehman.
Offer resolution 8262, a resolution approving an application for a vacation of a public road easement for property located north of 160th Street, west of Marshall Road, and south of Eaglewood Drive.
Counselor Mokel.
I'll second with its resolution 7862.
Did I dyslexia it?
Yep.
Let me take a look here. 7862,
And that will include the letter of understanding as well?
yes. Does that resolution include that letter of understanding? Staff says it does.
Okay, staff says it does. And further discussion? Discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Moving ahead then to 7C, the 2017 alley reconstruction project. Counselor Mokel?
I'll make a motion to open a public hearing.
I do have a motion and a second by Counselor Whiting. Open the public hearing. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Public hearing is now open. Bruce will present.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Where'd you do it then? Where'd it go? Can't see.
Like, is this my replace them? I can't really.
Bring it over.
I like that. An engineer and a planner working together
Well,
on technology.
there we go,
Yeah.
there we go, there we go.
Yeah.
Very good. Get on this slideshow.
One's
there.
gonna draw and
Good.
one's gonna get a hammer on it.
I guess we're all gonna need to go to eye doctor then, Teresa. Well, thank you, Mayor, members of council. This is a public hearing for our 2017 alley reconstruction project. And I have this quick slide presentation here. This is the alley between First and Second Avenue and Lewis and Somerville Street. This is also what you know as, or you'll hear more of later on, is part of the downtown improvement projects. It'll be right next to Lewis Street. There's a picture of the alley. It's not in very good shape. Back in 1995, when we put these alleys in, we used bituminous. Bituminous doesn't stand and hold up to the drainage that is occurring on the alley. So that's why we're proposing a concrete valley gutter. Kind of a plan that's been proposed, or it's in the preliminary stage, about 95%. And it just shows, there's gonna be some storm sewer here. There'll be a high point in the alley somewhere. So much of the water is gonna come down to this one, and the rest of the water will come down here. We're proposing also to extend some more storm sewer in the catch basin here in the gutter. If you've been down to the O'Brien Alley, it's very similar to that, and that has functioned very well. So this proposal consists of installing storm sewer, reconstructing the alley with concrete pavement. We estimate the total cost right now at about $120,000 for the project, including the storm sewer improvements. Our policy in the central business district is to assess 25% of the alley improvements and storm sewer improvements. The rest of it would be picked up out of the storm sewer fund. We estimate an assessment rate is $50 a foot, and you can see the numbers there: $30,000 to be assessed, $90,000 for storm sewer funding, and $120,000. I don't know if you can see the assessment roll, but essentially there's about 600 feet. Much of it is the city of Shakopee, almost half of it, and the rest is the residents or the property owners north and south of the alley. There's a viewpoint of the properties being affected. Questions?
Questions of staff? Counselor Whiting?
Is there any contingency to add any conduit or anything in case someday we want to get underneath that concrete alley and put something in?
Well, there is quite a few utilities in that alley already. Are you talking about a city utility?
Yeah, is there any potential that we might want to have some future growth? There's something in the parking lot or power to the transformer or fiber or anything like that where we might want to add a conduit somewhere?
We'll notify all the utility companies of this project, and usually when you take the cover off of an area that they can come in and do some work, they'll take advantage of that. So that would be the opportunity for them to add a conduit. I don't believe we need to add any city conduit, fiber for ourselves. But
Okay.
we would certainly ask the utility companies to consider that before we do the paving.
So I just don't want to have to cut it out of there when we have to add something.
I don't want to do, I wouldn't want to do that either.
No.
But we'll certainly notify my right-of-way technician, Jim Henderson, very familiar with this area. He can contact the utilities and make sure they know that we're doing the work.
Counselor Lewis? I forgot where I was going. Go and move on. I have a Counselor Lehman?
Couple of points. One is follow up on Counselor Whiting's comments. If there's going to be activities in the parking lot, there's probably going to need a couple pedestals for electricity somewhere, lockable, I would imagine. Second point would be, a while back I asked if we could consider changing the assessment amount to be consistent with the road policy, not necessarily for this project, but in the future. I think the road projects are 30%,
That's correct.
and
Alleys are 25.
alleys are 25 and they're concrete, so I'm thinking, I'd like to see the two the same.
Match.
And looking at our CIP, I know we're not gonna lower our street reconstruction cost. So I'm still interested in looking at that. And then also expanding it, not just for the downtown business district, but for residential alleys that have drainage issues. We had that conversation once before.
Counselor Lewis? Bruce, do you have a generalized timeline from beginning to end without the weather being interrupted?
It depends on, do you have a timeline? It'll come up, I guess, on the EDA, but it's gonna be a part of the overall downtown project, and the contractor will have a certain
The
timeline.
reason I ask is there's some businesses that rely heavily on being able to get in and out through that alley.
Yeah, we're gonna go with high early strength concrete. We're trying to minimize the outage for about 7 days if we can, but that's something we're still working on. We did that with the O'Brien Alley, and I think we can do it with here, but that's, again, weather dependent.
Bruce, I have a couple questions, and after seeing the last demonstration project, looks real nice. And we have some pretty poor alleys in our downtown, so I'm glad this is coming forward. Question one, are we gonna see, more curb-to-curb concrete than we saw in the, previous alley reconstruction?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
What do you mean, what do you mean by that?
In the previous demonstration alley, it was kinda, the concrete was right down the middle. There's some little bit of shoulder work that, asphalt on either side, and I think, best dollar spent, most effective, you'd like to see that a little more fuller. It's just a couple feet on either side, but.
One caveat to that, you
Yeah.
know, there's a practicality of getting forms in, so there are buildings, you know, how far can we get? So you try and go as close as you can with reason and practicality. But
My second question is, obviously this is gonna be a V'd alley for drainage. I read in here is there gonna be a grate system maybe of some little bit of length? There's a lot of water there on some bigger rains that we've had.
yeah, that's one of the things, and I've talked to Mr. Kursky about it too, and we're gonna work with the engineer doing the design, is that, you know, you can put some, what's called slotted drains
Okay.
in the gutter. Particularly, we've had issues with this alley in the city hall. When you have buildings on both sides, it doesn't get any sun, and slow melt off the roof drains go right into there, and it ices up pretty good. So if we can collect that water as soon as we can and put it in a pipe and drain it, that would alleviate that freezing problem,
Right.
as well as give us more capacity
More capacity.
for the summertime rains.
I know it rained last year real hard here around, and that area was inundated, and over here by the tracks,
And
obviously.
actually, the concrete alley worked the best.
Makes it worse?
No, it worked the best.
Oh, works the best.
I know which rain you're talking about, that 4-inch rain in an hour that we had.
Counselor Lewis?
Bruce, the water that goes to the east end of that alley ends up in the shade of the building that's on the south side there. So during February and March, the freeze thaw, we end up with a big backup of ice there. That's what's been detrimental to the blacktop. Are we gonna do anything different to alleviate that problem with the concrete?
Yes, Councilor Lewis, there is a catch basin right here in kind of the radius, and we want to extend that catch basin back to here, and maybe we'll look at an edge drain in the middle to help collect that water so we can alleviate that freezing problem. But we certainly, one reason we want to get these catch basins back too, the sidewalk areas, we want to collect the water prior to anybody walking
Okay.
across that.
Counselor Lehman?
Has colored concrete been considered?
What's wrong with gray?
Well, you get a darker color in the winter, you get the
Oh.
convection of the heat to
Okay.
melt it off quicker
I
and keep
know.
the drainage flowing.
No,
Cost goes up quite a bit. I
the-
looked at
we,
that.
if you want, I guess we can look at that.
I don't know if the cost is. If
It
it's
does go
substan-
up. I looked at it for my driveway and it, they, once you say colored concrete, they say cha-ching and,
Alright.
yeah.
Yeah, it is double the price.
Double?
Oh, all right.
I didn't say that.
Yeah, okay. I'm just wondering what the heck was wrong with
Right,
you.
Counselor
Like I said, what's wrong with gray?
comment for the record? All right, other questions of staff?
No, I'm
Counselor
good.
Walker?
I'm good.
amazing.
Just teasing Matt.
If not, thank you. This is a public hearing. Would anybody else like to come forward and make comment on this project? And please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and welcome.
Don't you just throw some dye in it? I can't imagine.
It's expensive, yeah.
Gray here.
My name is Rick Helver. I own a business at 212 First Avenue East. I've run a business there for 41 years, and I've owned the property there for 40 years. I have a little bit more of a bigger perspective of that alley problem, seeing how I've been there so long. And first off, what people, I think, are failing to understand is that alley has morphed into something that it was never designed for. That alley is a street. The traffic load on that alley compared to 25 years ago is over the top. It's a shortcut and a through street for the post office. Everybody uses it from the post office. I've kept track of the traffic count, and on most mornings from 7:30 to 11, there's more traffic going up and down that alley than there is on 2nd Street. Now, it handles garbage trucks, delivery trucks, but that's what the alley was designed for. It wasn't designed to be a through traffic street, and it was never designed for that. Now, the other issue is the time frame of the failure of this alley. In 40 years, I've paid 5 street assessments in Shakopee. I paid
Alley?
Home Street, I paid Lewis Street, I paid Main Street, I paid Somerville, and the last assessment I paid was for alley reconstruction.
What year was that?
Would have been payable, started being paid in 1996. Now, I just got that paid off, and now here we come with another alley assessment. I don't think that's not reasonable expectation for performance of a project. And there's many reasons for this. Number one, when you take an alley and you turn it into the through street to load and unload a city parking lot, that's outrageous. Lewis Street, wide, engineered properly, very good visibility, safe. That's where that entrance should have went. Now, when they put that in, first off, when the city purchased the ground, that was the old Pelham Hotel property. And it was basically, the back lot of that was a gravel sand consistency. And on heavy rains, heavy rains, the water was contained within the lot. There was not runoff. You didn't see it when you drove down the alley during the day or after a heavy rain. You never saw any gravel or sand or anything in the alley. Now, that alley, on the rebuild, I was there in 1976. It was an original alley, and from what I can figure out, that alley was reconstructed in approximately 1964. So that alley served for over 30 years. This alley is barely making it to 20. I consider this like purchasing a car. If you all purchased a car, you made the payments on it, you drive it about 2 more years, and it's time to buy another car. That's what this alley's turned into. And the problem is, I'm a property owner that's there by default. I just happen to be adjacent to that alley. I have no control. I had no control over the design of that lot. I had no control over how they laid it out. I had no control of where the entrances were gonna be. You're just standing there and you're watching this all happen, and suddenly, here comes another assessment. That's not reasonable for a taxpayer to put up with. And the biggest issue here to me is that the city parking lot. Originally, that parking lot was half size. It went in approximately 120 feet off of Lewis Street. And the city purchased the next half of the property, the Pelham Hotel property, and put the parking lot in there. Now, here's what they did. They changed the elevation of that property to purposely drain the water into the alley. And I talked to them when they were doing it, because I went over there and I says, where are you going to go with the drain water? Oh, we're just going to run it into the alley. I says, well, how are you going to get it there? Well, that's what the two entrances are for. You're going to drive in and out with your car, and the water's going to run out there too. And I went, what, you're going to push the problem into the alley? So I walked away. So they get the alley done, or they get the parking lot done. We get the first big rain. What do you suppose happens? Big giant pond, a lake of water sitting in the parking lot. So the plan didn't work as designed. And one more time, they have the chance, you're looking at this and the thought should go in your head, gee, we've got a problem. We should maybe fix this properly. And that is roughly a 25,000 square foot parking lot over there. It's impervious surface, and there is not one storm sewer basin anywhere. The water has been pushed into the alley. The alley was never designed to be a drainage canal, ever. And then when you get the water down to where McGovern's building is, it freezes up. But the worst part about this is when they were faced with the pond of water in that parking lot, they chose as the cure to simply cut the curb and let it run into the alley. Now, everyone knows water is your enemy. And now if you go down in that alley right now and you look where the worst deterioration is, it's exactly where the water comes from that parking lot. Now, I did a little research, and there are regulations and rules that apply to this, and they've been on the books for years. And the one I happen to pick out that will eliminate the grandfather clause, or the we didn't know it, or gee, the plan didn't work, or it was a mistake, is the reasonable care rule. Now I'm going to paraphrase the reasonable care rule for you. The reasonable care rule says that a property owner shall use reasonable care when they alter the topography of its property in such a way as to redirect storm sewer runoff. And upon doing that, they are also required to foresee any damage that the storm water does when they redirect it. Now, when do you think that rule was put into place? 1940. So, it's clear to me the city planned the lot, they purposely run the water into the alley, and I know why. It was the cheapest way out. It would have cost a lot of money to put in storm sewer drains. But that's no excuse. They got taxpayers' money. They just come back for more. They kicked the can down the road. Here we are, and now it's time to do it right. And I, as a taxpayer and a property owner, don't think it's right for me to have to pay again. We didn't get reasonable performance out of that at all, and we didn't have anything to do with that. Now, part of this reasonable care rule says that the property owner that reroutes the stormwater is liable for the damage that the stormwater does to all adjacent properties. And that's any damage, whether it be physical damage, financial damage, loss of use damage, or loss of access damage. So here we are. Now, we kicked the can down the road, didn't do the job properly, and here they come again, and it's a wonderful deal. Yeah, I don't disagree. The alley needs to be redone. But it was designed that way. I mean, how you turned it into a street. You load and unload, you got twice as many inlets into that parking lot from the alley than you do off of a street, and the street was designed for it. This is outrageous. To me, this is outrageous.
Well, things change over 30 years, and I understand your plight. We're trying to make this better.
I realize that, but I'm looking for the fact that at some point in time, somebody has to be held accountable for this. And I keep winding up being the one that's accountable financially. I don't think this is right at all.
Counselor Lehman?
Mayor, I just want to point out a couple of facts here. The alley's age is 22 years now. The city is picking up 75% of the alley reconstruction cost. Well, the general payers into the system are paying for it, and they also the ones that are using it. The parking lot drainage issue is being addressed in the new design of the parking lot and the alley, and the cost of the new parking lot and drainage for the parking lot is being picked up by the city. My question for you is, how do you stop the general public from using a public alley?
You don't stop them from using a public alley, but you don't promote it by putting the two entrances into a public parking lot by using the alley.
And then the last thing I would say is that the process that's available to you, if you feel that the city has wronged you, is to appeal your assessment through the judicial process.
Right, and that can be next.
Okay.
The only thing is I'm coming here first because this is absolute. If you people aren't engaged, I'm there every day. I see what goes on, and everybody from everywhere uses that alley and that parking lot, and I as a property owner wind up holding the tab for it. It's ridiculous.
It's a public alley. It's a public parking lot. I drive that alley. It gets used. Our population has grown. I do understand from the post office that people kind of, if they're coming over this way, they might go through the alley, absolutely. But the alley is in terrible shape. We have some drainage issues. We're correcting that. We have an alley here behind City Hall that's in the same or worse condition as well. Trying to make improvements here.
I realize that, but I think the fact that you no more than get one assessment paid, and now it's time for another assessment without any guarantees of better performance.
Right. Well,
Because I'll tell you what, you can put concrete in there, that's great, go ahead. But all you gotta do is take I-35 and go to Duluth. They've been rebuilding that for the last 8 years, and concrete breaks up just as bad as blacktop. It takes a little longer, but it's a lot more expensive to deal with.
Counselor Whiting?
Yeah, Mr. Halver, you speak about things that we agree with. The water, we're trying to get that water out of there, and we're looking at the parking lot in an upcoming agenda item. And I think we should be looking at some more of that drainage that you're talking about. So we're trying to make improvements here.
I
And
realize that.
I understand that, an assessment is
But-
never easy, but obviously, we need to do something because it's in the condition it is. And-
But you gotta, here, you're not seeing it from my perspective. Had the parking lot been done properly from day one, I wouldn't be standing here right now.
I don't disagree with you, but most of us here, maybe Mr. Lehman was part of that.
And
But,
no one's ever held accountable for
Well,
it.
we're trying to fix it, and none of us were part of that, and we're trying to make improvements and make your business area better and the water flow better and the drainage better. That's all we can do.
Counselor Lewis?
Counselor Lehman made an assumption that the parking lot project is going to pass. So at this point in time, we don't know that those drainage issues are going to be taken care of.
Valid
True,
point.
true.
Thank you very much for your comments and your concern. Bruce?
Yeah,
I
Mayor,
Bruce
members
may
of-
want to comment. I
Just-
apologize.
Just one comment. One of the things we are proposing with this alley is to go a one-way, put one-way signage in. Now, I know it may not reduce the traffic, but we're not gonna have two-way traffic. It'll be a one-way going to the west. So people trying to cut through going to the post office shouldn't be able to do that legally.
Right.
They may still do it, but
And we've
we're
had
gonna try and cut
signage
them off so they're not using that alley as a through.
on the alley just to the east there. there was a lot of confluent traffic, but now we have better signage, and that, for the most part, is a one-way alley.
Yeah, we're going to go a one-way
You know,
system.
And these improvements will have better signage too, to make it at least a better one-way, rather than conflicting traffic in a narrower alley. But thank you for your comments, your concerns, and your feedback. We do appreciate it. Counselor Lewis?
If you're going to do a one-way, I would suggest that you do a one-way to the east so that people coming out of the post office alley don't come across, so they can eliminate going north or south. That seems to be the biggest problem. They cut straight through so they can get to an opening on Lewis Street.
But then you'd have them backed up going to the post office out in the street.
Yeah.
If they went east.
This is a public hearing. Would anybody else like to come forward and make comment in regard to this project? Public hearing, please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and welcome. Seeing none, Counselor Mokel?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
I have a motion, a second by Counselor Lehman, to close the public hearing. Further discussion, discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you very much. Counselor Lehman?
I'll offer 8768, all right, 7886. A resolution ordering an improvement in preparations, plans, and specs for the 2017 alley reconstruction project 2017-6.
I have a motion and I have a second by Counselor Whiting. Discussion, Counselor Lewis?
Bruce, go ahead.
Parliamentary wise, since I made the motion, I get to speak to it first.
Well, Counselor Lehman, yes.
Reading my Robert's rules. I just wanted to make sure that we all recognize the drainage issues that we're talking about and what we pointed out with staff about some of the opportunities in that area.
Right.
Along with the utilities, conduit and stuff like that. Not saying we're doing that, but make sure that they're looked at.
Thank you. Counselor Lewis?
My question's for Bruce. There's $16,000 in indirect costs. Is that engineering cost, Bruce?
Yes, engineering, admin.
Okay, just wanted to verify that.
Counselor Whiting?
Yeah, and I agree, this is a drainage issue, and assuming that we make changes to the parking lot with the rain gardens and the storm catch basins and things like that, the drainage, we're assuming, is going to be helped on with this project. As far as, I mentioned adding conduits, this may be an opportunity to, and I actually think there's a grant program out there for electric vehicle charging stations, and this might be an opportunity. I know there's a transformer in that area, and I think we talked about it at Spuck at one point in time. This may be a good spot to kind of, people travel around areas finding electric vehicle charging stations.
The parking lot would be the opportunity.
The parking lot would be, assuming, but the conduit in the alleyway might be needed for something like that, and may look to the future to add something like that.
Mr. Reynolds?
We've had conversations with the utility on both in this parking lot and also at the community center as well for charging stations.
And I just think looking towards the future might be, so we don't have to cut that concrete.
Yep. Counselor Lehman?
Yeah, I just think it's important for the public to know that we're being proactive on our design in this alley. Not only is it gonna be concrete, which does have a longer life, I'm sure that the subsurface is gonna be looked at and upgraded to today's standard, which is a much better standard than, 95 or 45 or whatever year it was put in. And the inverted shape of the alley is conducive to drainage,
Right.
So there's more than just one improvement being made here on the side of drainage, longevity, structural integrity, and many other things, so.
I agree. Further discussion? Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you very much. Item number 8, we'll stand in recess for the EDA Authority meeting.
Call the Shakopee EDA meeting to order for May 16th, 2017. Secretary, please note the roll. Everybody should have an agenda packet in front of them, and a motion to approve the agenda would be in order, Mr. Myers.
Mr. President, I make a motion to approve the agenda. Thank you.
Motion by Myers, seconded by Kathy?
Mhm.
Mokel? Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Consent agenda, EDA bills and minutes. Any questions? Mr. Whiting?
I'd make a motion to approve the consent business.
Seconded by Mr. Mars. So a motion by Whiting, seconded by Mars. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. General business, item number 4A, presentation from FSS on a fast track challenge. There was a new thing that was passed out tonight on the table here. Mr. Kersey is going to lead us in this endeavor.
Thank you. Good evening.
Welcome.
Mayor Mars, council members, staff. My name is Patrick Stroh. I'm a resident of Prior Lake, and I am a board member of Technology Village. I'm going to share a couple slides of Technology Village, if you're not familiar with that. And I'm also speaking on behalf of Joe Faust with Scott County First Stop Shop. Joe is actually at the EDA meeting down in Jordan tonight, so typically we would be together doing this. So we've been doing a number of presentations around Scott County. Mayor, you've seen this a couple times already, so I'm expecting very astute questions from you. One of the things we've been doing, though, as we've been talking to business leaders, is I would typically look around the room and say, you know, a lot of you folks are successful entrepreneurs, business owners, and so forth. And aside from community service, sometimes it's time to reach around and, you know, help the next generation of business leaders be successful. And so I typically start with this and then offer, we have a program that we're putting together from an economic development standpoint that we think could be very beneficial to Scott County. And so that is quickly what I'm going to walk through with you. So first of all, a little bit about Technology Village, if you're not familiar with it. I believe Technology Village is the only incubator program in Scott County. So we have some dedicated office space within our City Hall environment. And at the end of the day, what we're simply trying to do is connect entrepreneurs to resources. So that's where Joe Faust and Scott County First Stop Shop tie into this, ties into a number of other organizations. We've all seen and heard entrepreneurs that have ideas but have no idea how to follow process or how to get access to resources. We're simply a method to tie those two things together. People that come to us typically are looking for space. They don't have some, you know, space conducive for them to operate a business or get it off the ground. They might have a good idea, but they don't understand IP protection. They don't understand legal aspects. They don't understand marketing. They may have never opened QuickBooks before. So there's a number of questions that we would get. Those are the people we're trying to help. Again, you can see some of the offerings around Technology Village. You can see here on this slide a number of the places where Joe and her folks would work from a First Stop Shop standpoint, places where they would direct residents to get additional resources and again direct them in the right areas. So now the big thing I want to talk about is the Fast Track Challenge. So aside from being on the board, I've had about 25 years experience in business strategy and innovation. I do consulting on it now. I've come mostly from the corporate environment. I was Chief Strategy and Innovation Officer at United Health Group. That was a $24 billion business. We did corporate business challenge events like this. This is a little different for me from the standpoint that we're doing it in a community environment, but we're really excited about this. We're anxious to do it. We haven't seen anything like this, at least to my knowledge, in Scott County. University of St. Thomas does something. They actually did it just recently, their School of Entrepreneurialism. University of Minnesota does the Cup, the Minnesota Cup. That's actually going on about the same time as this. But again, we haven't seen anything in this neck of the woods. So you've got flyers in front of you. I'm just going to take you through some of the highlights. So I'm guessing that a number of you have heard of the TV program Shark Tank. That's really what we're mirroring this after, is a Shark Tank type event. So again, what our mission is to try and connect resources to entrepreneurs that need them. And at the end of the day, it's all about economic development. So at Technology Village and in Prior Lake, as we're talking about this, the way we see it manifesting itself is imagine the day when people are driving on 169 North and they're getting over the bridge, and there's a big sign up there, a big billboard that says, stop. Plenty of high-paying jobs behind you, turn around and go back. So we want to do as much as we can in Prior Lake, just like you guys do, that we all want to do in Scott County, is to create more jobs. So we're hoping this is one small way to do that, and hopefully this is just the first year in doing an event like this to do that. So we're soft launching this thing as we speak. So we've been designing on this for a couple months. We've been soft launching in May, going around having conversations like this with as many constituents as we can talk to. The idea would be this culminates in a live event in October. So we're out soliciting now what the interest is, talking with folks, doing marketing, doing social media. We'll make a go, no-go decision. I strongly believe this is going to be a go decision based on just the people we've talked to already and the interest that we've seen. The idea would be ideas will come in the July, August timeframe. We'll evaluate down to a top 5. We'll put together an esteemed panel of judges and do a live event in October to pick a winner or winners. So again, Scott County wide is the scope of this. So the idea would be the person has to be a resident in Scott County and building a business within Scott County. Timeline, I think I talked through that well enough. Prizes and rewards. So what the goal is we want to do 2 things for the winner, and again, winners, there might be multiple, but the idea would be to give them first a cash prize, so investment that they can put back into their business. Second is to put together a professional services package. So we're looking throughout Scott County, and one of the things, if you've ever started a business or run a business, again, outside of the product or service that you're trying to bring to markets, there's all these other things. The legal stuff, like I said, the IP, the QuickBooks, all that stuff. So we're trying to find professional service providers within Scott County that'll donate maybe, say, 4 hours of legal time, 4 hours of accounting support, and so forth, to help these entrepreneurs fast track their business. So sometimes it's not just about cash. A lot of times it is, but you also need that expertise. So we want to bundle that package together and help people out and get it going. Obviously, from our standpoint at Tech Village, Scott County, sponsors that get involved in this, there's media coverage that we're looking at already within this, things that we're putting together, and obviously the economic developments. The Maxfield Research. Mayor, have you guys talked about the Maxfield Research as a group here?
No, we've seen bits and pieces of it.
Okay, so the Maxfield Research, one of the things that makes these events successful is if you tell entrepreneurs places to innovate. So if you say, come with us for ideas in areas where we know there's demands and gaps. The Maxfield Research was done for Scott County. It goes city by city. It talks about the county as a whole and says, here's where we have gaps and demands. So the idea would be people can come forward with any ideas they want, but we're going to try and give them direction to where the real need is. On top of that, we'll actually tell them the evaluation criteria. Not a fan of keeping that a secret. Absolutely want to tell them so they can be successful how they're going to win this thing. So it'll go down through concept, viability, potential of this thing really taking off. It's going to go to the creation of jobs first. Second, the creation of high-paying jobs, and then keep going down through the criteria. One of the aspects with the technology component, we do want to see a technology component included in this. There's a number of examples on the right-hand side. Again, we're not trying to narrow down what they come up with, but we're trying to help them prime the pump, stimulate their thinking on some of the things that would really take off and create those high-paying jobs that we want to see. So before I field any questions, the last ask that I have here is twofold. So one is we would love to see support from this group, just from a standpoint of overall support, marketing, tell anyone and everyone, put it up on your Shakopee water tower, put it wherever you can so people understand and know about this, we can have a successful event. Two is we do need sponsors. We'd love to see some businesses step up. I was asked this question in another meeting, well, what does sponsorship potentially look like? We've put some packages together. Imagine, a large company coming forward or a medium-sized company coming forward saying, we're going to put $10,000 or $20,000 prize money into this, and we're going to get our logo all over this. We're going to be the gold level sponsor on this event. That's the type of thing we're looking for, as well as the service providers that I talked about earlier. So with that, I will stop, and I would love to field any questions that you might have.
Let me start out if I can. This, are you familiar with a program called Project Gate?
Project Gate, I am not.
Okay, it was a federal government program back in 2000s. I was the lucky winner of that, and they did it by lottery at a library. You had to be there at a certain time, and they used a machine from bingo. Pick the number. And what they did is they took your business plan at the James Hill Library, and the instructor sat down one-on-one with you and went over your business plan, made sure they understood what was in it. You signed a release form, and that instructor took that business model plan to the business class in the college and let them critique it every which way from Sunday. Then that instructor would meet with you again and tell you where your plan is bad and where it's good, and keep tweaking it until they were satisfied as a class, the instructor was satisfied that it would be successful, and the business owner that submitted it was willing to make them changes or not. I went through that process. I've been in business for, well, a little over 15 years successfully. The other option was a group called SCORE out of Burnsville, I think it was. Bunch of business groups got together. That group told me, what they were telling me is not things that I wasn't willing to do with my business. And they said it would fail in 2 years. So I'm glad I didn't go their route, because I didn't agree with what they were saying. So I think there has to be, I mean, I like what you're proposing. There's a lot of different models out there, and you didn't talk a whole lot about looking at somebody's business plan specifically. And I think that's important, because when somebody is gonna go into something like a business, they need to think through the whole plan.
Yep.
There's a lot of pieces to that plan. So I think it's great what you're doing, and I just think just like what you're trying to do for a potential entrepreneur is what you can do for yourself also.
Yep.
Improve the model.
Yep. So it's really good feedback. So I've cut my comments short a little bit on Technology Village. I didn't want to bore you with a lot of that. But getting into that program from a virtual standpoint, if you're in Scott County or if you're a resident of Prior Lake, you can get into the full program. A lot of that is getting assigned then a mentor that will do some of the very stuff that you're talking about. And that's actually part of winning the program too. When I said multiple winners, aside from the cash prize and the professional services, if we see 5 winners come through, we'd probably put them all in the virtual program and give them that mentoring and coaching help as far as looking through business plans and so forth.
I don't like to say winners, because anybody that comes forward with an idea to start a business, seeking information, is a winner,
Yep.
whether they are taken to the next step or not. So I don't like to make it a winner-loser. I think they're all winners for trying.
Good point. Thank you for that comment.
Questions, folks?
Mr. President,
Lars?
yeah, Pat, thanks. I've seen this presentation now 3 times. It really gets you thinking hard. You've presented in front of Scale and also the Shakopee Business Leadership Group, and there was some genuine, hey, look at that, from the business leaders. Asking good questions and saying how they can get involved. So interesting to watch this process move forward.
Mr. Whiting?
Thank you. No, I think this is a great opportunity for businesses to get moving. I'm not sure our public utility wants you to put any names on the water tower, but I wondered if there was any opportunity through some of our development grant money that we have laying around in piles, I'm sure, in Mr. Reynolds' cubicle office there, if there was an opportunity for us to invest in this as a city.
Well, so we can certainly take a look at that. I would defer to my finance director to figure out where all the pots of money are, though they're not in my office. But no, we can certainly take a look at that.
And can I just make a quick comment?
Sure.
I love that, because one of the things that's on the top of my list is to make sure that this is not just a Prior Lake event and that it's a Scott County event. So when somebody, you know, one of the other cities or a business from one of the other cities outside of Prior Lake steps up as well, that's gonna be great because it's gonna show that we're all working together.
I
on
knew you
this.
guys had a business development center in Prior Lake, but you have businesses out there too?
Yeah,
Oh,
absolutely.
okay.
Yeah, we do.
But they're all in Shakopee, right?
I would say that
Big ones.
from my perspective, I think there's a bigger opportunity here that we're really not. I kind of hit on it to begin with, and I'm going to go a little bit more in detail since the opportunity's risen. We have the opportunity to not only help people that want to start a business and give them the tools to be successful, but we have the opportunity to take students that are actually going to school, paying for this education, to look at real-world events and get a better education. We can combine them two forces like past projects have done and with good success rates. So I would really like to encourage that piece of it, where you can actually tap into college students and professors that have this drive and are paying to learn these things, take real-life business models that are coming forward and critique them to make them better and you know, bulletproof so that they are successful. Not only are they winning for free, but you're getting their expertise for free. And this is really not about how much money can each community put into this. Where you benefit from my perspective, from the city of Shakopee or Prior Lake, is the recognition of a decent program that's available and the advertisement on websites and government affiliation. But I don't think, I'm not quite there yet until you can fine-tune some of these things that make it really successful.
No, I don't disagree. I think if there was an opportunity that they could build a bridge with some sort of business school or something, I think that would be great. But in the meantime, putting together the professionals that they've put together to do what they can with the tools they have with their development center, I think that's great too. But it does take money to get some of this stuff going, and prize money is probably not going to be going into the pockets as much as trying to develop that business that potentially could be, will be in Scott County according to the standards you've put together, but potentially could be in Shakopee or used by people from Shakopee in Prior Lake or wherever it does end up. But I think that there needs to be a little bit of seed money, and I know we have, I'm fairly certain we have some business development funds, maybe in a different realm and possibility, but I think they need some of that to use.
This is geared towards Scott County, and I'm sure Scott County has the wherewithal for the seed money since it's all inclusive of Scott County. I think it's as more cities get involved and make your program better and drive it, I think where it's important for the cities is to have anybody in Shakopee that lives here or works here or has a business here or wants to start a business here needs to be able to come to a city that can send them to Scott County's affiliated think tank.
And again, that's one of the benefits. If Joe were standing here, she'd be talking to you from more of a Scott County standpoint versus just Tech Village, because that's part of her job is to tie all that stuff together.
My concern with us funding it is that now somebody comes to us and wants to start a business in Jordan, we're really not the right person for this.
Right.
Where the county is a much better fit for the larger
Well,
scale of it.
One-stop shop, and the challenge is perfect, county driven, wherever that business is based is great for the county, great for us, and we're all in it together, so.
Appreciate the presentation.
Thank you.
Wish you all the success in the world because it matters to everybody.
I will tell you just quickly too, you're spot on with the younger generation comment. I was speaking at Minnesota camps today, so high schoolers, and you should have saw the eyes light up because we said they're totally eligible to bring stuff forward as well.
Yep.
Thank you.
Item 4B, selection of vice chair. I asked this be added to the agenda because obviously if I'm not here, somebody's going to run this meeting. So I guess I would open it up for a nomination of probably Ms. Mokel to be vice chair, since Jay's the acting mayor, Mars is mayor, and Mr. Lewis was just president.
I would second that.
I didn't make that motion.
Well, I'll make that motion. I just, have we had a vice chair in this position in the past?
We have.
We have.
Okay, well, I would make that motion to nominate Ms. Mokel as vice chair.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second that, Mr. President.
Any discussion? Is the nominated person
I will accept.
okay with that? Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 4C, plan for downtown improvements. Mr. Kersey. Did I pronounce that right?
Pardon me, sir?
Kersey, is that correct?
Kursky.
Kursky, I missed a K. Where's it a C?
Chairman and members, this is just to update you on where we're at. I think there were some questions at the last EDA meeting when we're at 50% plans. If we could come back, we're at about 90% plans right now as of this week. So again, this is the 3 areas that we're working on. There's the Lewis Street parking lot, the area, the plaza under, excuse me, the project, and then the corner right in front of O'Brien's and across the street. So this is the much talked about Lewis Street parking lot. As part of this, there are significant drainage improvements. One of the reasons why we're seeing higher estimated costs here is after Public Works completed the soil borings, we're going to still remove as much as 5 feet of the subsurface because it's not suitable soils. There's a lot of construction debris that was found, so that will be removed, and then in 8-inch lifts they will compact that back up so that we have a more stable area. Since the parking lot is largely asphalt, we want to make sure that it holds up. There was some discussion earlier. The alley is one way headed towards Lewis Street. There is an entrance off of 2nd and also off of the alley. The area that's towards the front is a main drainage area, and there's also a drain where you see the island there. So a lot of the stormwater first will hit that island and drain into that. There's an underground drainage system that it will drain then into the tree wells and then all over to the storm drain. So it's a pretty sophisticated drainage system.
And we're more than doubling the drainage capacity in the parking lot and the alley, is that correct?
Chairman and members, there is really no drainage except to the alley right now and onto the streets, so it's a significant improvement in the overall drainage.
Plus, we're adding capacity in the alley itself by directing it somewhere instead of.
Chairman and members, yes, as Mr. Loney mentioned, there's a catch basin plan for here. We've asked them to move that back out of the pedestrian way, so there'll be a new catch basin here, and then we'll be reconstructing the one on the other street so that all that water gets caught before it hits the street. This is a close-up view of the pedestrian area. As you can see, there's a significant amount of landscaping along the street, but underneath this area is a large water area, so a lot of that drainage before it hits the storm drain will be going through this area, so the trees will absorb a lot of that water along with all those plantings. One note, these are not raised planters. They're actually short kind of seating walls, and the engineers came up with an interesting idea. They're going to be precast with sections with slots so that if we do get an inundating storm, the water actually drain into those first, kind of as a first wash to protect the area from a stormwater inundation. So that was, I think, a pretty creative solution. So you often see these planters in a heavy rainstorm, they're overflowing. These are actually designed to take the water in. And then again, this is the rain garden down the middle. So this is designed to pick up all that storm water first, and then it brings it over to this area, and then it goes to the storm drain. So the whole idea is to slow the water down so it doesn't inundate the buildings. One of the details that they're working on is along this particular building. They're going to do a concrete curb. Behind that curb will be a watertight membrane to keep some of that water from infiltrating into their foundation. So besides getting the water away in the concrete, they're actually going to be doing some waterproofing along that wall to keep water from infiltrating into that area.
Is it moving that water above ground or below ground?
All of the above. So in the parking lot, the water will drain to the middle first.
Above ground?
Above ground, it drains into that. And then underground, it works its way over to this area where there's, if you think about milk crates, but much larger, that are supporting the sidewalk and the trees, that water goes into there, and then it eventually will drain into the storm drain. So that it has quite a long period of time. So if we get a 4-inch rain, it all doesn't flush into the storm system right away and inundate it. I'll give a lot of credit to WSB. Their stormwater engineers have are working on this as kind of a model on how we fix the problems we have. They were down here during a rain event and they saw the volume of water we see in the alleys, and some of this is coming from the parking lot, so they wanted to make sure none of this water goes back into the alley. And this is the area where the Christmas tree is right now, so that will be a similar raised planter. There'll be a permanent section in the middle here where the tree can go, but when the tree isn't there during the rest of the year, it's going to be a landscape bed. We're going to work on preserving the larger trees that are here right now, and also fixing some drainage issues that occur in here, which will include installation of some stairs and a ramp over here, because if you've ever been in there, it's very wavy, and there's a lot of elderly people here, so they've worked on making this 100% ADA compliant now. And this is the Gateway Plaza, so pretty large gathering space, heavily landscaped, to really kind of create an entrance feature into the city. And this is the other side of the street, so the building is right about here. This is going to be a reader board that could announce events happening downtown, like the Rhythm on the Rails and other things going on. A new sidewalk rebuilt here and some additional landscaping.
Is that the grassy knoll where the current sign is?
Chairman, no, the current sign's over here. This is across the street, where the signal cabinet is.
Yep.
And Member Whiting, you mentioned earlier about conduit. One of the things we're doing in the Lewis Street parking lot is actually moving some of the power out of the wet areas. There's a power station that's right up in the sidewalk area that actually gets inundated. WSB is designed to move that back to a more secure location, so that they have been working with WaterMold, which is a pretty well-known company, to develop a waterproof outlet system, so that when we have events, you'll actually be able to open a waterproof box and there'll be power available. So not the old kind of cabinets that you see. This will be something a little bit more watertight. Just some idea, these are all approved plants in the city. This will be what you'll see when you're sitting right at the intersection. This is the word Shakopee. The masonry and stone will match the Huber Park. We're actually requesting a sample of the brick, whoever wins the contract, so we can make sure it's the right color and the right mortar. That is a lit sign. Those are a little over 2 feet tall, and they are internally illuminated LED. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mars.
Mr. President, Michael, in regard to the sign, I'm showing that it's, I don't know, a foot, 2 feet off the ground till the bottom of the letters.
So, Mr. Chairman, what you're seeing, you have to look at the grades. This is actually pretty high up in the air.
It is. So, higher than the black fence.
Yes, so if you think about where the
You're
black...
gonna have a clean visibility coming across the bridge.
Correct, so the black fence, we're working with the county to get that removed because they've agreed it's not necessary anymore. That black fence, the top of it would be at the heavy black line under that wall.
Okay.
So if you think about it, that's sitting up again higher than the black fence. And those are lit letters. They're about 6 inches thick.
Yep, cool, thank you.
Mr. Whiting.
So this is the sign coming across 101. You're looking at the River City Center in the background.
Yep.
Yes.
Now, you talked about the elevation, about being the bottom of the words, let's say, is at approximately the top of the fence where it is now. Is that what you said?
So Chairman and member, what we've done is they actually did a car study and worked on, parked a car out there and looked to see where the best visibility would be for this sign. And this is the exact size and height it needed to be. And still allow that transparency so you can see under the arch and through. We looked at a bunch of different variations on this, and that included a taller wall, but it basically blocked the whole, because of the perspective, it blocked the arch. And so this was a solution to open that up. It still have a pretty significant letter size and also have it illuminated in the evening.
I'm just, I'm with Councilor Whiting here that on the sign, so I don't want to block the archway, but yet I want the sign high enough where we can see that. And you said you had a car parked there, and the sign from across the bridge, I can see that?
Yes, sir. I mean, so they actually, to get to this, they did renderings of what different signs would look like from a car.
Okay.
and took a picture from that car and drew the car in. So this was the optimal height without making the sign ginormous and blocking the whole area, but to make it simple and clean and still kind of match the character of the downtown.
Mr. Whiting?
And I guess what I envisioned in there was the archway and this kind of sitting in there, but you could still, so it's kind of framed almost. And
So in the rendering, so if you can think about it, you would see the arch about here in the rendering, about where my cursor is. So you can still see through the downtown. And that was, the original idea was a much taller wall with letters pinned to it. And when they did that, it basically blocked the archway entirely. And so this was, I think, a pretty good solution. And if you look at the landscaping plan, let's go back. So, excuse me, it's cut off because of the screen here. But there's your wall. There's a kind of a cascading
it
down.
looks like a pillar to me. I don't know.
A cascading down of landscaping in front of that sign. So it'll be pretty dramatic.
This right here. That 16 it says on mine.
And we still haven't resolved, this was just a placeholder for what this will say up here, but this is a pretty good size digital reader board. RJM, who's been working on the community center, said that if they had their druthers, they wish that sign had been a little larger at the community center. So when they worked with WSB and the sign consultant, they made this larger so you could read it from the highway.
Yeah.
And then this was a feature that we added in. So this is a brick sitting wall on that plaza at the gateway, and facing traffic, similar to the Shakopee in the same font, would be the word downtown, also lit at night. And the other thing that they've done is in this detail of the wall and the sitting wall, they have LED lights tucked up under the stone so that at night, instead of lighting this like a prison yard or something, it'll have a very ambient, low-level LED light throughout the plaza. So it'll be a pretty dramatic. When you're driving down the road, you'll see the lit downtown, and you'll see all the landscape in the walls lit with LED. So it'll be fairly dramatic. And this is a pretty good section. So here's the seating wall height. This is the wall that the downtown actually sits on, so it's up pretty significantly. So that, again, they did a study on what's the best height for cars coming down the road facing downtown. And this was sort of the ideal height to get that up so people could see it.
Can you, you said that's in the Gateway Plaza area, sorry, Mr.
Go ahead.
Chair. I'm trying to place that here in
I'll show you.
renderings and that, and I'm,
So, excuse me. O'Brien's Pub is here. There's a White House here. There's a driveway that comes into another building right here. That wall, if you look on this plan, is right here.
hold on, get the right spot.
The right keyhole to.
Where you,
So if you,
now?
right here.
Right there.
Oh, okay.
So that brick wall, the high part of it is right here with the word downtown on it, facing the traffic. And this is a seating wall here, here, and then over on this side, there's a little seating wall also. And I've met with Scott O'Brien, and he's pretty excited about this. It will really create a pretty grand entrance into this area.
Well,
Go ahead.
my concern here is that it's the new Shakopee Skate Park. Is there any things we can do to try and alleviate some of that?
So we've had that discussion. That was one of the reasons why they came up with the idea of those precast planters. Because of the notch, they don't skate very well.
Right.
So you would fall basically when you hit the notch. So it's not very exciting to try and do that. And they've had success in other cities doing that. On the wall, so that middle wall is much taller, so it's a very short skate piece. And Edina's had pretty good luck. If we have to use them, they have little metal bumps that they stick up that they install into the masonry to keep anyone from skateboarding along it.
Okay.
Cities have done a great job in the last 10-plus years at mitigating skateboarders on public infrastructure, and whether it's built in or added. I know it's been a big item for municipalities over the last many years, but I believe the technology has improved to try to mitigate that.
And I'll give major credit to WSB because we asked beyond the stormwater why there was the gap, and they said on the planter beds it was designed so people couldn't skate around them because they've had that problem in other cities.
I think the cities that have been successful up with the skateboarders and rollerbladers are the ones that actually have parks for them to use.
Yeah,
There you
no,
go.
no, we've done a lot with that.
And then, excuse me, we have a lighting consultant that's been working on this. So the existing fixtures downtown, of which there are many, we're going to be going to an LED fixture. We've worked with Spuck on this. They're fine with the design and the product. So over time, we'll eventually have all of downtown converted to this fixture. And this is just a photograph from another location, but it's very similar to the fixture that's currently in Huber Park. So one of the things we've tried to do is take some of the elements from Huber Park and bring them over so there's some connectivity. And the only big difference is these will be LED versus Huber Park, which I think are high-pressure sodium.
Mr. Whiting?
In this gateway area, I know in some of these LED projects, you can have what amounts to being a dimmer switch, where you might have them nice and low at night, but in a situation maybe during a festival down in Huber Park, you can turn them up so that it's a little brighter and people can, traffic can see people. Is this an opportunity where we could put something like that in here?
So Chairman and member, one of the interesting things is that, because LED technologies literally moved light years in the past 3 or 4 years. So at the Gateway project, all of that LED under planter lighting will be not only dimmable, but we can change colors. So depending on the season or the event or special breast cancer awareness or whatever, in other cities I've worked with, they actually changed the color of the plaza. We'll have that ability with this equipment.
Wow.
And these light fixtures are also dimmable. And this is a closer view of what the actual fixture looks like. So it's very similar to the fixture that's in Huber Park. And again, the only big difference is
Those
it's
are
an LED.
top down?
Yes, sir.
Yep, and reflect back up,
Yep.
right? Yep.
Well, and they don't look like they're the kind that could be turned up and flood out the traffic, where traffic wouldn't be blinded by them.
Mayor, these are, Chairman, these are 100% cutoff fixtures, so all the light is going down. The other big change, and I don't have a picture of it yet, is one of the original concepts was to cut in concrete sidewalks across the highway and in downtown. And working with Scott County and talking to our public works director and other of the businesses downtown, you're talking, because it's high concrete, it still takes 3 days to cure. So we would be blocking lane after lane 3 days at a time. So there was a significant expense. We're looking at a product that's been around for about 15 years that company has a patent on, and they're coming up here in June. It looks just like brick. In fact, you would swear it's brick, but it's not. It's in a very high technology stencil. It's about the same price as the concrete, but it would save us weeks of lane closures. And
Durability?
Durability, it's got a 3-year, 100% guarantee. Most of the projects they've had, it's been out for 10 years and 50 to 60,000 vehicle trips a day, and there's been no wear on it. So it's an epoxy material with actually, it's similar. The concept you see garages where you paint the floor and throw the chips in, imagine that except on steroids for commercial use. It's about 3/8 of an inch thick, so the snowplows don't tear it up. It's not a heat, it's actually chemically bonded to the pavement. It works best on asphalt. So they're coming up here, MnDOT's looking at it for some of their roads. So we thought this would be a great opportunity. It would save a significant amount of heartache in the downtown as far as lane closures, particularly on the highway. So they can, it has a 3-hour dry time, so we'd be able to open up the roads after 3 hours. And it's pretty dramatic when you see it. We'll bring back, once the guy's gonna bring the presentation up, but you cannot miss it, their crosswalks. It's a very vibrant product.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess the only question I'd have, and we'll probably wait till the person brings that forward to us, but, you know, their applications in freezing and thawing in this kind of climate, and then how slippery that might be when it does have ice on it. So I guess we'll wait till.
How salt and whatever else they put
Yeah,
on the roads
yeah.
affects it?
So obviously.
Chairman, they've been running it actually in some states that use more salt than we do, and
Really?
that hasn't
Okay.
been an issue. And because it's got a grip to it, they haven't had any issues with icing. So it's got kind of quite a texture to it. The benefit would be if the road gets repaved, they basically grind this up and then we would just relay it in 5 or 10 years. So it's a pretty effective system, and I think the county will be much happier because we were going to have to cut 6 inches into their 11 inches of asphalt, and there was some concern about water getting underneath the concrete. This is actually sitting on top of the bituminous, so it's a much better product.
If it's the same cost as the concrete, so somehow we gotta coordinate with the county that they're not gonna redo that section of road for 10 years.
Well, yeah. Good luck.
So this is the tentative
It's brand new
schedule.
road. They close right now.
City council would approve to advertise bids on June 6th. June 7th, we would advertise. June 20th, city council would approval to receive bids. June 29th, we would have a bid opening. July 6th, a bid review. July 18th, city council approval of the award. And July 24th, start construction. So this is kind of RJM's best shot for the moment based on they're already out in the market. That's why we thought we'd bring this to you, because I'm getting phone calls from local contractors. So you could see where we're at, because they're out pricing right now to make sure we stay on budget.
Anything else?
That's it, sir.
Any other questions? Item number 5,
Mr. President,
Mr. Mars.
I'll offer we adjourn the EDA till Tuesday, June 20th, 2017 at 7 p.m.
Second, Mr. Whiting. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Reconvene the Shakopee City Council.
Guess what?
Councilor Mokel.
I'd like to make a motion for a 10-minute recess.
Oh,
Second.
I have a second. Motion to recess for 10 minutes. No discussion on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you. We stand in recess for 10 minutes. We will reconvene this City of Shakopee City Council meeting for May 16th, 2017. We are on item 10A1, a final plat of Rainbow Child Care Center, and Mr. Noble will present.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, members of the audience. As you stated, this is an application for final plat. Plat's name is Rainbow Child Care Center. The plat in question is out off of Highway 18 and 21, just south of US Bank and just north of the Quick Trip. Crossings is to the south. And of the plat, there's 2 lots proposed. Total plat size is just a little bit under 4 acres. And one of the proposed users is a daycare center that would be a little bit over 1 acre, so there'd be approximately 2.5 acres balance for future development. Property is owned by Southbridge Crossings. Mr. Soltau is the property owner that signed on the application. Daycare is a business that did come in for initial use permit for the daycare. They went to the Board of Adjustment and Appeals in early May and were approved for that daycare. They also asked for and received variances for setbacks of their drive aisle and of their trash enclosure. We do have some slides of that, so we'll show you those. But again, this is the final plat. This is the plat itself. You can see there will be 2 lots. Question, this northernmost is where their daycare would be built, and the balance would be for future development. So a little information on the daycare operation. Approximately 130 students, 15 employees, ages 6 weeks to 12 years, and essentially running from 6 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. Site plan for the daycare. To the north, that is County Road 18. The plan is to connect a trail or a walk that would tie into the trail that runs along 18 and access off of what's identified as Pennstemon Lane. It's a private drive, and the daycare facility is, I believe, approximately 11,000 square feet in area, play area, in addition to the parking lot on the east side of the facility. The north arrow is essentially to the west. Landscape plan, you see they're planning to provide quite a bit of landscaping along the south drive in this image, but it's actually the west elevation. City staff will be looking to have them provide some additional screening along the parking lot. Utility plans, there's quite a few different utilities. There's a significant easement that runs through the site at about this location. That's why the building is kind of pushed tight to this side, and the drive was separated so that tried to keep that easement clear as best as possible. It's an elevation plan of the facility. Floor plan. Some images of another facility that would represent, it's their facility at a different location, so they would be replicating this at this site. And entrance to the facility. So again, it's a property that was previously final platted back in 2000, preliminary and final platted back in 2006. What is being proposed is consistent with the previous approved plats and also is consistent with the city code standards. So staff's recommendation is approve the plat resolution as provided. Are there any questions?
Question of staff, Counselor Lehman?
Can we be a little more specific on the variance areas?
Sure, yeah. And the variance that was approved by the Board of Adjustment and Appeals was the driveway is right at the property line. Typically, you have a 5-foot setback. And then they have a trash area that is right at the property line where that should have a minimum 5-foot setback. Okay, Mr. Soltow, representative of the property to the east in this image, was very supportive of this, as he anticipates when they come in with the development that they would, whether this would be a shared driveway for their use and to add another trash area adjacent to theirs, so it looks like one versus two separate ones in islands. So the board was supportive and did approve those variances.
My question, Mayor, is how do we make sure that that happens on the other lot when it does develop?
Very good point, Councilmember Lehman. But we, again, I spoke directly with Mr. Soltow, and he said that was his plan to do that, and certainly was support of this variance for that reason. So when he comes in, that it's gonna look the best for this area. Now,
He could
things
sell it.
change. Say he were to sell the land, someone else comes in. So you 100% can't guarantee it, but we can certainly, as staff, if something happens here, that we can push for that to occur, and use some leverage of site improvements with those conditions. So
And if we can't, Mayor, if I can continue one more point, and if we can't do that, then when the other lot does come in, would we then seek a variance, or not a variance, an easement along that driveway, in effect giving us that 5-foot?
to get 5 feet along this side
Well,
here.
Right,
Okay.
from the property, that property, if it develops, and it doesn't develop according to what you're planning.
There's plans as part of this plat, you can see it, that there would be a drainage utility easement along here. So if they do come in and do an enclosure, we'd be looking at a vacation of part of that easement. I don't believe there's any utilities in this, proposed in this area, as most of the utilities are in this larger. This is a 40-foot easement. But this is a typical condition. It's got perimeter easements around the sites. But we could certainly ask at the time that this site develops for some of these stipulations.
One last question.
Yes.
Is that property part of the larger PUD in that area? Or was it neighborhood
This is where it gets
commercial?
good. It's actually zoned PRD, Planned Residential
Okay.
District, which we technically don't use anymore,
Right.
but that's what it's zoned, and that kicks back to the R1B design standards. So that's how we evaluate this Planned Residential District.
Okay, well, my concern is, how do we make sure that,
How do we marry it?
correct,
Right.
to the use next to it in the future?
Because if you put the drive on the next available lot, if you put the driveway on the other side, then it might be a spacing situation, or maybe even a joint driveway somehow. But if you go, okay, we're here, and make the driveway over on the south side of that other lot, then Quickie Trip gets a lot of, they have a one-way out here, really, what I call one-way out. You can come in here, but
My point, Mayor, is that we're being told that that variance is being accepted, understanding that when the future property develops, it's gonna be a shared drive and a shared
Right.
garbage. That's fine if you can actually enforce that on the next property.
And again, we'll have, Bruce isn't here anymore, but we will have, there are certain criteria in the city code that stipulate curb cut locations. So we're gonna have some control, if they wanted to put another one, say right down here, the city may say that's not acceptable we need some more
Yeah.
separation. So we can force some of that per the city code standards we have in place now. Engineering reviewed this, didn't have any concerns with this cut, didn't say anything about future concerns, but I believe with the city code regulations we have in place, we can make sure that we're not gonna be placing like two separate cuts right next to each other at this location, nor down at this location.
Okay.
So,
Other questions of staff? If not, thank you.
yeah, thank you.
Counselor Whiting?
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 7883, a resolution approving the final plat of Rainbow Child Care Center and move its adoption.
I have a motion and a second by Counselor Mokel. Discussion? 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 All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Up next, 10A2, award a contract to MKSK for the 2040 comp plan, and Eric Weiss will present.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Here to discuss the comprehensive plan and our contract. Just a reminder for you in the room and for everyone watching at home, this is really our opportunity to put together a vision for the city, really help think through how we're going to be making decisions in the future, and then guide for growth and change. In our proposal for the process, we've outlined 10 design principles. This was included in our RFP, and we asked all of the applicants to respond to these. I'm really excited to say that they all did a good job of really thinking through these design principles. We released the RFP in March with the April 3rd deadline. We did receive 5 responses: MKSK, House of Levine, the Lakota Group, H3 Studios, and WSB. Those listed there are in the order that they were ranked by staff in the initial review process. The top 4 are from outside Minnesota. WSB was the only primary applicant that was from the state, and they were ranked a very far 5th place. We did have a multi-department team review proposals that included planning and development staff, administration staff, communications, and Parks and Rec. I thought it was a really good process. We got a lot of good comments from the various departments. Upon review, we decided to bring forth the top 3 applicants. We brought them in for an interview. And ultimately, the top 2, House of Levine and MKSK, ranked very closely. We had a really good discussion amongst our review team. And ultimately, upon reviewing some examples and really thinking through what do we need as a city and for our plan, and balancing what we have available at City Hall as far as staff and resources, we decided to go to recommend MKSK. They are partnering with HR&A Advisors, an economic development consulting firm, and Tool Design, which is a transportation firm. Tool Design does have an office in Minnesota, and HR&A has done work in the Minneapolis region. MKSK does have some strong technical, graphic, and engagement skills, which we thought were really necessary for this process. And they are really strong, particularly in parks and riverfront connections. HR&A is a well-known, very reputable economic development firm. And then MKSK also has done a lot of work in areas where they're not only focusing on redevelopment, but also new growth, which will be important for the Jackson Township planning. Here's just a couple of examples of plans that MKSK has done. You'll see their highly graphic use of images is throughout. One thing that was really important and that we asked a lot of questions, and when we checked references was something that we asked, was the implementation side of things. So we don't want a plan that just sits on a shelf. We want to partner with an organization that has a lot of experience with implementation. These are all images of projects that have been implemented following planning done by MKSK. The one on the top left is Columbus, Ohio, and they actually won the National American Planning Association Award for excellence in implementation. That's been a really catalytic project in downtown Columbus. The others are suburban locations. They work primarily in suburban locations in the Columbus region. And we checked with a handful of their references there, and all of them were very happy to recommend MKSK. A number of them have also brought on MKSK for additional projects, which we thought was very good to hear. The proposed work plan and schedule includes 5 phases. It does get us to that deadline of December 31st, 2018 for the Met Council. The first phase would be community understanding. It would take place in May through July of this summer. This is where we'd really launch the project. We'd think through what is the brand, the communications plan. We'd put together a project website. And then this is where we really come to an understanding of where the project should go and what are the issues in the community.
Eric, the city launched a comp plan visionary survey today. Is that part of this, kind of the icebreaker, a way for folks to be involved in a online survey? Is that correct, at the city website?
Absolutely, Mayor. That was an initial part of engaging the community.
Yeah.
We will definitely be launching a much larger engagement process as we move forward, but we wanted to start to get the idea out there to the residents.
That today, so that's great.
And we actually have had probably about 10 responses to that survey already, so we're getting some good feedback already. August through October would move into the visioning and strategic frameworks process. We'd host a large community visioning workshop where we would invite a large portion of the community to come and put together that vision. We'd outline community goals and then begin looking at the various planning chapters and providing some framework to those chapters.
Is the workshop, is that going to be moderated by the company?
Yeah, MKSK would facilitate that. We did, we wanted to make sure that it wasn't just a traditional public open house. And MKSK assured that they do a lot of really hands-on workshops with various tables, various stations for people to engage in, and use a variety of tactics.
Yep, great.
The third phase would be focus areas and implementation. All of these phases kind of cascade on each other and build on each other. Here's where we'd be looking at some of the specific strategies and tactics for the various planning chapters. And we would also focus on catalytic projects and big ideas. This was something that MKSK recommended, where we really look at the prioritization and where are the areas where we will essentially get the most bang for our buck, or where they feel that there will be a catalyst. So whether that's the connection to the river or downtown projects or development of Jackson Township, we'd go through that process and really kind of think through if we are looking at the next 5 years, what are the things that we should focus on? There'd also be a community open house at that point, where there'd be an opportunity for the community to kind of check in, for MKSK and the city to check in with the community to see, are we on the right path and do we need to make any adjustments? And I should say, throughout all of the phases we'll be doing, we'll be having a large meeting or open house or workshop, but then we'll also be working to do smaller engagement activities throughout. The fourth phase would be in February and March of next year. This is where we're getting really close to the final document. We would have a public presentation, and would be probably about 80% done at this point. The next phase, April through December, is we do have a 6-month review period required. So to get to that deadline in December, backing up, we'd have to have that begin in April. We'd receive comments from local or adjacent jurisdictions, which we'd then incorporate into the plan. And then we'd have presentation to the Planning Commission and City Council. Just looking at the budget here, we do have a project budget of $229,500. $60,000 is from our general fund. $125,000 is from Scott County Planning Grant. $32,000 is from the Met Council Planning Grant. And then, since I have this opportunity to speak with you tonight, I did want to update you. We applied for a Blue Cross Blue Shield funding initiative, if you remember, a month ago. And we did receive word that we did receive that project. So we're pretty excited about that. $12,500 for that. So the contract for MKSK would be $205,000. $12,000 is going to Scott County to help with the countywide roadway transportation planning. And then that $12,500 would go towards an expanded community engagement process. $6,000 of that would be subcontracted out essentially to community organizations to help us reach additional populations, hold additional workshops, hold focus groups. I'll go into that a little bit more. And then $6,500 of that is to help with supplies, advertising, printing, marketing, food, whatever we need to really get people out and engaging with us. So there are 17 projects that were funded as part of this initiative. It was a pretty competitive process. We had an orientation on Monday to this initiative, and how it will work likely is it will be organized as a sponsorship agreement. It's kind of the lower level contract that Blue Cross does their work through. We'll be bringing that to City Council sometime in June. Some of the activities for part of that, we're looking at some hands-on community workshops, potentially a meeting in a box where we'll provide the tools and questions for people, and if they want to hold their own meeting without city staff present to provide us the feedback, they can do that. We're looking at Photo Voice, which is a project that will be focusing on youth, engaging youth, and taking photos of their vision for Shakopee. And then attendance at community events. So already we're talking with the Diversity Alliance for having a booth at the International Festival. We're talking with Downtown Main Street about having a booth at the Rhythm on the Rails. So any of those opportunities that we have where people are already gathering, we want to be there asking them their thoughts. So our recommendation is approval of the resolution 7889 with that minor change of review of the city attorney. I apologize for that. To MKSK in the amount not to exceed $205,000.
Great. Questions of staff? Councilmember Lehman.
The HR&A and tool design, are they subs working for
Councilmember Lehman.
MKSK?
Yes, they will be subcontracts
Within the 209. right?
within the 205. Yep.
And HR&A is out of where?
I believe their headquarters is out of New York.
And tool design?
They have an office here. I'm not exactly sure where their main headquarters are.
Minnesota somewhere?
And the MKSK is out of
Ohio?
Ohio, right?
Correct. The majority of their staff will be coming from their Columbus, Ohio,
Ohio.
office.
Yeah.
The principal on the project will be coming from Greenville, South Carolina.
And then I have one last question.
Yep.
The request for request for proposals. In that proposal, when we put it out there for bids, I'm wondering what we're looking for in the contract. Consistencies to the proposal, or what exactly are we looking for in the contract?
Attorney?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, no, I'm not worried about consistencies with the proposal. Because it was an out-of-state company, there were some provisions that don't quite fit with Minnesota law,
Okay.
and I just need to change them. It's nothing substantive that
Okay.
would affect the price or anything else.
Okay.
Other questions of staff? Other questions of staff? Michael?
Mayor and Council, I think Eric should be congratulated. I mean, to get 4 of probably some of the top firms in the country. MKSK won the APA award in 2016 for their projects. So I think a lot of the other cities that are paying similar amounts of money are not getting, I think, the in-depth work that he's been able to put together. So I think some credit to Eric for shaking the woods and making sure we got some top national talent.
Thank you, Eric. Questions?
No, it sounds like good work. It looks like you put together a group within the staff and kind of went through what you're looking for and the goals here, and you had your points laid out. So I appreciate the work on that, definitely. And with that, I can offer resolution 7889, the revised version on the table, and move its adoption.
Okay. I have a motion and a second by Counselor Mokel. So we are, it is the revised motion that was on the table tonight with some further language that Mr. Reynolds earlier identified. So further discussion? Discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Eric, thank you very much for your work, and we'll be looking forward to your work and the company here over the next year and a half.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving forward then to reports, 11A, liaison reports. Let's start with the administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A few items for this evening. First of all, I'd like to announce for everyone that hasn't heard that the Public Works Open House, we will be holding one this year on 23 May from 3 to 6 p.m. at 400 Gorman Street. We will have grilled hot dogs as opposed to boiled.
Ooh.
Fire department boils their hot dogs, by the way, but these are grilled.
Step up.
Stepping up a bit, a little pressure on the internal on the staff. We'll see what the fire department does next year. Bounce house for the kids. We'll obviously have vehicles out there that they can crawl around and see what our Public Works staff does, and refreshments as well. So please come out and support that effort. It should be obviously a fun-filled family event. Internally, we're currently undergoing a full revision of every one of our job descriptions, which staff has been working on for several weeks now. So every job description we have is being totally retooled. Ultimately, all of those will come to you. So we're doing the piece of it now on the staff side, and that's for our compensation and classification study. It's been a while since that's been done. We're looking for clarity. We're looking for simple language. So when somebody looks at it, they actually know what that person does, and that's a big piece of it as well.
Will they also be signing their job descriptions when they are hired?
Will they be signing their job descriptions?
It's a good practice to have them sign it so they know what their job description is.
I will defer to Mr. Burkett, who is responsible for that.
Councilor Mokel, yes. As part of this whole process, kind of next steps are designing a strong onboarding process, which would also include signing job descriptions, signing policies, conflicts of interests, and things like that.
Perfect.
And other duties as specified.
As other duties as specified.
Very good.
What other duties is not specified?
Yeah, that happens too often, yeah.
Tomorrow morning, we're having our final interviews for the Public Works Director / City Engineer at 8:30. Kind of bittersweet to a degree, obviously, with Mr. Loney moving on, but Bruce has been very helpful throughout the process, as you might suspect. And tomorrow we're focusing on Public Works staff for them to have the ability to sit down and kind of ask some questions and see if of the individuals that we have coming before us are going to be something that's going to work into our environment and our culture. So looking forward to moving forward with that tomorrow morning. And finally, I think this is finally, just to make sure I've got my notes all here. Finally, both Mr. Nelson and I will have our second annual budget meetings, which you'll remember that as opposed to having the budget meetings after the budget's crafted, I and Mr. Nelson both thought it was very important to have some public input prior to that process starting. So our first budget public meeting will be Wednesday, May 31st at 6:30 at Fire Station Number 1. The second one will be Friday, June 2nd at 10:00 at the library. These are designed to be educational. They're designed to be hopefully give answers if there's some questions as well, but also to provide input more than anything else about what it is that we're doing in the budget process and how we can communicate that process better. And as you know, this is, from my perspective, going to be a 2 to 3 year period. This will be the second budget cycle where we're trying to tell our story a little better down the road, and you'll see some of that changes coming forward in this process as well. So those meetings are coming up, and that's all I have, Mr. Mayor and Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. Councilor Mokel?
I did not have any liaison appointments, but I did sit in on the interviews for our replacement for Bruce, and those went well. So it'll be interesting to see how they turn out for everyone, so.
Good. Councilor Whiting?
I had no liaisons to report on, but I did want to mention kind of a thanks from the community for our Scott County Peace Officers Week. Keep the peace officers and the Shakopee PD in mind. And is Chief still awake out there? Anyway, thanks, Chief. That's all I have.
Okay, great. We did make it Peace Officer Week here in Shakopee, and a proclamation was signed for this week. We have a national deal, but we're doing our part here. On May 12th, I attended the Scale General Assembly meeting and had a overview of the Maxville study only in the CI part only, the commercial industrial area. Very rich. Shakopee does very well in this area, but we're going to be short on commercial industrial land here shortly over time, so we'll be looking for that. I know, we're working on our orderly annexation agreement phasing plan, and hopefully we can address that. But to break it down by what businesses are looking for and what's available, either raw land or existing buildings, I found it very fascinating. We talk a lot about housing, but the CI piece is a big piece of it, so that's what I had. Councilor Lehman?
May 8th, attended the school board meeting, sat through the 16-17 budget shortfall discussion and the 17-18 future budget. I guess what came out of that was they basically got, you read this in the paper, I'm sure, but they basically got their $4.5 million shortfall down to about $710 million, or $710,000. Did it pretty much using the kitchen sink mythology. Part of it was land sale, which wasn't a big part of it, but it was something. A lot of it was line item shifts and accounting specific to each department. Some of it was revenue on the revenue side. So, that's good news to see that they're making progress with it. The other item I wanted to bring up was the Citizen Finance Committee Board, whatever they're calling it. They're taking applications, I believe, up till May 26th for that. So if there's anybody listening that wants to be a part of that, sign up for that. They're looking for folks with a specific skill set in financing, not just basic financing, but involved financing, so that they can use that input on their financial decisions moving forward. And there was a little bit of talk about using that group, once they get through the issues that they're working on in their budgets and stuff, for possibly other items too. So that's my report.
All right, thank you very much. Moving ahead then, item number 12, other business. Any other business before this board? Otherwise, I did want to make a mention, we're going to move to closed session here in a minute, but I did want to make a mention that for our TV audience, we are starting our move here, Mr. Reynolds. Just a little update. I know it's on our website, but we are, due to technology in the new City Hall, we are ending video of our meetings here for the next little while, and it will resume at the new City Hall.
Yes, sir. Hopefully, it will only be 2 meetings, probably 3.
But they will be.
For the audience, you know, we're open for business, we're open to the public, kind of a little, technology aspect here on that, but, huh? Oh, Nate, I'm sorry.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to let everybody know that we're still going to be videotaping the meetings, and we'll have them available for people to watch, hopefully the next day, or if
Okay.
not, maybe
So we're
within
gonna-
a day or so.
We
of the
won't
meeting.
be live, but we will tape and we will post in a timely manner after our meetings
It won't be available on the broadcast channel, but it will be available on the website.
on the website.
Maybe we should
Okay.
tweet or something. Yeah.
Well, very good, and, well, great on that. So, no other business before this board. Item number 13, we're gonna move, to closed session to discuss, the sale of city-owned property. Mr. Thompson?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, just to be clear, that it's the property located at 339 First Avenue West, 321 First Avenue West, and 129 Home Street South, and it's being closed pursuant to Minnesota statutes 13B05, subdivision 3C.
Okay, so enough clarification on that, then we would take make a motion. Counselor Loose?
According to what the paper says here, these are city-owned properties. I may be mistaken, but there's a couple of these that I don't believe we own. So I think there's a misrepresentation here.
Oh, Mr. Kursky?
And then we purchased them without my knowledge.
Let's
Mr.
talk
Mayor
with
and
Mr.
Council,
Kursky.
we own the property to the rear, which does not have an address, and so we're gonna discuss the property in the front, which is privately owned, along with this building.
Couldn't hear it, they were talking.
Huh?
Yeah, I'm not sure I heard what he said.
All right, Mr. Kursky, a lot louder,
So you're saying.
please.
We will be discussing the property which the city owns behind those addresses, which currently does not have an address. And we'll also be discussing those properties
Oh, I didn't
for
decide.
potential acquisition, and we will also be discussing this property.
Okay. Thank you, and then, so,
You
Counselor
need that-
Whiting?
I'll make a motion to go into closed session pursuant to the proper state statutes and
Yep.
for the business of property acquisition and sales.
I have a motion
Make sure they identify.
and a
Second.
second by Counselor Mokel. Further discussion? Counselor Lehman?
Was that 503 section 3C?
Yes.
I'll take that as a friendly amendment.
Second.
Joinable by the second. We have a amended motion by the, agreeable to the motion maker on the second. Further discussion? Discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. We are now in closed session.